plan. Then after that, there'll be an opportunity for ARs on the call to be able to ask questions. And if you want, you can kind of hold on to those questions while we're presenting, or you can also add them into the chat. And other members of the bargaining team.
Like, well, this is what I thought was going to happen. So this is exactly why I didn't.
Then we will have members of the bargaining team who will also try to answer some of those questions as they come up on the chat. Okay. Then about 5:30, we're going to try to shift gears from our bargaining conversation to begin talking about what can we do? What can we do as an organization? What can you do as a member? What can we do as ARs to be able to try to change the fiscal future in front of us and try to make some differences for our students and for our members and our school district. And then after that, finally, we'll talk a little bit about the Restart Task Force that's happening in the district and how it is that the association is involved in that and how it is that we are trying to get more and more educators from across the district involved as well. So with that, we're going to start with, I'm going to share my screen with you. And we have a presentation that is hopefully going to help us stay organized so you guys can follow along with what we're doing. We'll see how, there we go. So we, during the 1920 school year, we are bargaining with the district for next year's policies. So we obviously bargain for teachers, nurses, and mental health. And depending on the year and depending on the issues can kind of dictate what are the important issues that kind of come up throughout the year. So this year we started in October with bargaining, and we had several issues that we had carried over from last year, either via MOUs or because we weren't able to complete them last year. So because of the number of issues that we had last year, we also agreed to bring no more than 2 issues forward to continue to discuss this year. So Cherry Creek School District, the district brought forward benefits, and the association brought forward 2 issues, which was special education caseload and workload, as well as the general education class size and workload. And the intention was for us to try to work through both policy language as well as memorandums of understanding. So just so you understand, when you look through some of the different tentative agreements, when we're looking at policy changes, we're looking at permanent changes to the policy book. MOUs are generally speaking a year or sometimes 2 years where we're studying or researching something to then hopefully eventually turn it into permanent language in the policy book. So these are the tentative agreements that we have reached this year with the district. So those are the categories. Those will be the different tentative agreements that you will vote on once ratification begins, and you'll be able to kind of look at the entire package. There are some wins in here for us. There are also some wins in there for the district. That's kind of the nature of negotiations. And so hopefully we'll be able to kind of walk you through the tentative agreements today and how it is that we arrived at some of these different decisions. So I'm going to start with benefits. Benefits we've already talked about in our last town hall with ARs. I know that there's been a lot of communication out there. Benefits open enrollment closes tomorrow. Some people are not aware of the fact that you will not be automatically added to a DHMO plan if you do not sign up for benefits tomorrow. You must go in and actually actively sign up for benefits. It will not automatically happen for you. And if you don't do that, you could theoretically, and how it is that those rates and costs impact the policy that we've negotiated. So we have cafeteria dollars that are obviously being redistributed as health savings account dollars. But for those people who have taken those cafeteria dollars as pay, you will get to continue to see that money in your paychecks moving forward. There's also a guarantee from the district in terms of the funding for benefits will never drop below next year's funding. So we're never going to see overall cuts in benefits. We're going to continue to negotiate from there. We've also received a guarantee that HSA amounts will be $3,000 and $6,000 for individual and family respectively for at least the next 3 years. So that gives families and individuals an opportunity to hopefully build up the base of their health savings account so that they're not in a situation where they're having to pull money out of pocket if something were to happen. The next policy is evaluation. I'm going to turn it over to Melissa.
Hi, everyone. My name is Melissa Clemens. I am currently the instructional coach at Red Hawk Ridge Elementary. I've been on the bargaining team. This is my 3rd year and worked a lot on evaluation. And then last year, a lot on the elementary planning time issue. So this year, looking at evaluation, it's policy 4170. We really looked at how we can change the Cherry Creek evaluation policy to really align with the state's policy. So previously we had for probationary teachers, they needed to have 4 observations, but the state only had 2. So really aligning that. So we lowered the minimum number of observations. So it does need to be 1 for a non-probationary teacher and at least 2 for a probationary teacher. You always have the opportunity to ask your evaluator to come in more often than that. Non-probationary teachers, we were really excited about this one, have more options in terms of how you want to be evaluated. So still the informal or formal. So if you've been in the district a while, if you were effective or higher, you now have the option as non-probationary to be evaluated by peers, but that's based on your quality, on the quality standards one. This is sort of that middle ground that really focuses on the quality standards 1 through 4 and says, this is specifically what I want you to do, but it's really asset focused in terms of this is the growth I want you to make for non-probationary teachers before all of a sudden going to the directed improvement plan. Okay, we also added, because of the unique situation that we're in, we also added an MOU around where we're at right now with COVID-19. So as most of you know, evaluations were sort of stopped and put pause for right now on this year. Next year, hopefully, if possible, and not all situations will work out, but when possible, you will have your same evaluator and they will use the data and observations from this school year to really inform your practices for next year. Probationary teachers in years 1 through 3, we really worked on adding 3rd year probationary teachers into our MOU because we felt like our time for them, we needed to do this now and we needed to get it into language. So next year, so if someone is a P3 now and next year at the end of the year receives an effective or highly effective evaluation, they will retroactively gain non-probationary status for this upcoming school year and then can't be non-renewed. We've had a lot of questions about P1s and P2s, and please know we are continuing to work on this. This is something that we will bring back up with the district, and the district is aware of in the fall, but years 1 and 2, we didn't feel the urgency because they wouldn't have gained non-probationary status this next coming year anyway. So we sort of pushed pause on that, but definitely in terms of evaluation, we felt as a team that we had some big wins, and district was really excited about the path that it's going to for administrators, but also for teachers, and a path of growth instead of an I gotcha. So we were excited about that.
Sorry, I had to unmute myself. So supplementary pay, for those of you that get supplementary pay, you know what this is. For a lot of people, you may not be aware of what supplementary pay is, but it is the way in which we pay coaches and sponsors for clubs at all 3 grade levels. Supplementary pay traditionally has been in a 10-step system. And what we have done is agreed to collapse it into 2 columns. So you will be paid at 1 rate if you are years 1 through 10 in terms of years of experience, or 11 plus. The base factor this year was 22,500. We've increased that for teachers 1 through coaches and sponsors 1 through 10 to 31,500, and anyone 11 plus is at 34,000, which essentially means every supplementary pay position has been moved to the equivalent of step 9 or higher. And so every category will see an increase in pay. The really good news is that we have taken away the middle school supplementary pay MOU. So middle school Coaching stipends will no longer be paid on its own separate scale. They have been moved back into the new single schedule that we've created, but most of the middle school positions have been moved down a category with the idea that you are still doing only 4 days a week for a particular club or sport, but you will see a raise obviously in the pay just like everyone else. And in some cases, you're seeing a much more significant raise than the other categories. We also decided to replace the old school interest club idea with a new category 11. And that's basically the way in which we're going to talk about site-based clubs or activities that happen at all schools at different levels. And what this eventually will do is expand the supplementary pay positions available at the elementary level. And it also gives some flexibility at school sites with the intention that all categories 1 through 10 are considered kind of, this is what every kid in every school in our district deserves access to if there is a teacher or a coach who's willing to sponsor it. And then category 11 will become any of those site-specific school activities, clubs that that a community finds important, and they'll have money within their budgets to be able to support those. In the end, what we created, we hope, is an equitable, transparent pay system across the district that is no longer dictated by who your principal athletic or activity director may be or how much funding they have, but instead hopefully expands those opportunities to both our teachers as well as our students.
Hi everyone, I'm Jenny Campbell. I'm a special education teacher over at Pine Ridge Elementary, and I am also your secretary for the association. So I get to talk to you about some of the relief that we talked about this year for the special education side of things. Please know that this is just a start. We are going to continue the conversation next year. So the first thing is that we created hardship forms to seek relief from the district for caseload and or workload issues. So for instance, this year I had 54 kids on my caseload. That is a ridiculous amount. I can fill out this hardship form, send it into the district, and they can look at different options to be had. This is also a way for us to be able to really look at the data to see, does it seem to be like a feeder area that's having a lot of struggles? Is it lunchtime? Is it lack of planning? Like what truly is it? So we can bring some more of these specified issues and have data around it to the table. So the idea would be that you fill out this form. You would have 10 days to hear back from your principal. If you guys cannot come to a decision, and Carly, the screen just went white. If for some reason you guys can't come to a decision together, then we can then move it forward to the district level. But the idea would be that you guys are going to have to come, you'll work together kind of through that solutions-based process. And then you're going to have to get information from the district anyway, especially if you're looking for extra para support, or if you're looking at maybe a potential support to have someone come in and help with caseload adjustment and look at those pieces as well. The hardship form gives you a variety of different options to be able to look at. But if you have questions, feel free to reach out to one of us. We do have official word that starting not next school year, but the year after, 2021-2022 school year, the elementary level will either have an early release, so the kids could get out an hour early, or a late start where they would come in an hour later. We're still in conversations as to what specifically that could look like to help with the elementary plan time, as well as how special ed can utilize this. Is this the time that we keep kids to do testing? Is this the time when we have IEP meetings? What is that going to look like? Those conversations are still going to be had. The last one, as part of the negotiations process, was the creation of the district-wide assessment teams. I know there's been different thoughts as to how this will look. We are still in communication with the district. They were supposed to start this summer. We don't know how that's going to look with the initials and the summer assessment team, because I think they're taking place of it. But there have been people who have said that they want to be the ones to do initials for kids. Maybe the district assessment team can help out with the re-evals for kids. Just know this conversation is still happening. Nothing is set in stone yet, but we are part of those conversations. But if you have questions, please feel free to reach out. And this is just a start, and we're bringing all this data forward for next year too.
Career and technical education. I'm Scott Kay, your current president of CCEA, and I worked on this particular MOU. The committee was brought together to solve the simple problem of how to place career and technical teachers on the current pay scale. Since their education isn't directly aligned with what a teacher would come into the profession with, they found it was very difficult to offer them anything other than a bachelor's 0 on the pay scale. So, so basically, they come in at a bachelor's 0, they can move as high as a bachelor's 0 step 10, but they can't move beyond that. And when bringing somebody from the professional world, for example, say an auto mechanic, who's making $100,000 on their own to somebody who we offer $43,000 to, district was finding that it was very difficult to offer anybody anything of comparative value. So we decided that we didn't have enough information to really go much further with this. We did some research. There's some neighboring districts that were looking at us to decide what we were going to do. So we were going to be the first group to make a move, and we decided we didn't want to be the first this year. So we put together an MOU to move it to next year. So it'll be reevaluated next year, reassessed next year, and we'll see what we can come up with other districts and what they're doing, and use some of their information as research for our own project. But we will definitely bring this up again next year. The online teaching MOU, that was also my project as well. The online teachers have flex scheduling, which is different than what our negotiated agreements cites. It says that all teachers will work an 8-hour day, a 40-hour work week, where a lot of the online teachers don't work 8-hour days, but they do work the 40-hour work week. So the district was concerned that there would be a grievance filed over the fact that they were working maybe 10 hours one day, 4 hours the next, 6 hours the next day, but it did equal 40 hours. Some of these teachers work late at night because that's when students are available after school sports or maybe after their job. And we wanted to protect the flex pay ability, the flex pay, but the flex scheduling ability that these teachers had to make the program work so that it was student specific and the needs of the students were met. So that was the first part of the MOU, was that their flex schedules would allow them to work a 40-hour week, but not necessarily an 8-hour day. The second part had to do with a 30-minute lunch. When the online teachers are in the building, which is 1 to 2 days a week, they can be provided their 30-minute lunch. That can be made available to them. But the district was concerned that if they were not on campus, the 3 days that they're off doing online work, that they may not get their 30-minute lunch. So the MOU basically provides provisions that they will be providing their own 30-minute lunch when they're out on their own. So that was the basis of the online teaching MOU.
Hi, Lynette Snyder. I am on the bargaining team and also on the executive board. The MOU that I've been working on this year is for special service providers. And specifically, if all of you ARs know that you get 3 different books, one for teachers, one for nurses, and one for mental health. So what we've been working on this year, and we'll have to continue working on throughout the summer and probably into next year, is creating basically merging that mental health and nurse book into one, because a lot of the languages are inconsistent. Whichever of the 2 books has the better language on each different policy, we're trying to use the better language so that we provide all SSPs with equal rights as we would in the teacher policy book. And again, we'll continue working on that over the summer and probably well into next year. Thanks.
Sandy, you're up.
Thank you. Okay, I'm Sandy Culbertson. I teach at Homestead Elementary. I teach kindergarten, and paid leave started the MOU took place this year during the school year. And it was the fact that you didn't have to put in for sick days or general leave. It was just all lumped together as leave. And then we had asked the district to track the information and give us information about how it's working and how people are using it, and are there increases in usage, and et cetera, et cetera. So we were able to look at reports of that for a few months until we started to bargain online. And then we needed to make sure we got benefits and compensation and some MOUs in place for NEC to continue conversations next year because excuse me, because we wanted to make sure that the things that were going to impact us the most were the things we finished. So we didn't want leave to get pulled as it was and go back to the way it was. So we asked for an MOU to continue looking at paid leave for next year. So it is the same thing next year as it was this year. All the leave is lumped together as one type of leave rather than general and sick. We want to get it into permanent language, and we didn't feel like we had time to do that this year, and also go through the antiquated language that is currently in the negotiated agreement, just because it's been in there for so long. And we wanted to make sure we updated that appropriately so that it reflects our organizational values. So that is why we ended with an MOU on paid leave.
Hi, everybody. My name is Stephen White, and I'm a mental health person and a coordinator in the district. I'll be trying to shed a little bit of light on our compensation MOU that we entered into with the district. You know, the difficult decision that we came to around accepting a freeze to the current step that we are in was not taken lightly, and please know we had lots of conversation around that. I'm going to be very specific to watch my time, that I know that I only have a couple of minutes to go through this, but please know we had lots of conversation. As you can see within the slide, all the changes, people are available to get lane changes until around September 1. I think, well, they go into effect after, but there's a deadline to meet in order to get that lane. But essentially, the step that you're in now is the step that you will be in next year in terms of your salary. There are additional compensation pieces that will remain in place. Longevity. We'll talk about MaxL here shortly. The additional responsibility factor, mentor teacher pay, educational overnights if those occur, compensation for substitution, curriculum development, those will certainly continue to be honored, and also payment for those teachers that are have a national board certification. Just go to the next. And then the following compensation pieces, the difficulty is when you're talking about salary and how things are budgeted based on what incoming monies are there. 105 plans will continue to be in place. However, we're not going to have new 105 plans. The maximum salary increases, as you note here in the slide, will continue, and also project pay for mental health folks. And then we will be coming back together in the summer to look at additional areas, SAIP, what that looks like in our current environment, supplementary pay, and extended contracts and responsibility factors. And again, a lot of that is related to the environment and how we are navigating this coronavirus COVID-19 landscape in which we find ourselves. And then the last piece of the MOU is that just more defining the subcommittee that will get together as early as possible. We say in July, and that really looking at what savings the district was able to have regarding the benefits change and our sacrifices for the greater good of everyone around benefits. and also any new costs, new information coming in from the state. And also, what does our remote learning, blended learning, virtual learning environment look like, and how does that apply, or the implications to current policies? Again, I really appreciate your time and listening to this, and we'll be fielding questions later.
All right, thank you. Thank you to everyone on the bargaining team who has given countless hours and time and energy to be able to go through these particular agreements. It has not been an easy year, and some things obviously shifted in the middle of the year, and we had to be able to adapt pretty quickly to figure out how it is that we were going to continue to advocate for all of our members. I know there's some questions in the chat, and I do want to be able to address those. And I'm trying to decide if I should stop sharing, or if that's probably the easiest thing for all of you. And then I will be able to look at the chat questions, because I couldn't respond to anything while I was running the PowerPoint, so I apologize. I do want to say one thing about compensation, and this also fits in with the question up here from Maria about supplementary pay. So essentially what happened in terms of our conversations about compensation is we were able to get the district to agree to the idea that any money that is currently in compensation, all items of compensation, will continue forward next year. So that's essentially what the freeze is that whatever they've allocated for compensation this year, that will be the same amount that they will allocate next year. So that's how it is that you can continue with things like the 105 plan, national board, et cetera, because those were budgeted. And while those are additional compensation, there are different teachers who have become eligible for those kinds of dollars versus others who retire and take that sort of compensation with them, so to speak. And so with specifics to supplementary pay, what we were able to do was there is essentially $3.4 million that's spent on supplementary pay. And the agreement that the district made with us was we will continue to allocate $3.4 million for supplementary pay next year. You just need to figure out how to create a schedule that will cost us that same amount of money. And so that's what we were able to do. So yes, there are people who are seeing increases, and it has to do with how it is that we restructured and reorganized our supplementary pay. It also speaks to what I think is the most important part about the compensation conversation committee that will be happening when we come back in July and August. And that is that, you know, every district over budgets how much they're going to spend, right? It's the job of a CFO to prepare for the worst case scenario. We're going to spend everything. And then we get into the actual budget year, and what typically happens is we don't spend as much as we budgeted, or sometimes we spend more depending on what we're talking about. And so our intention was to be able to get those guarantees that this amount of money will be allocated for compensation. And then when we come back in July, we're able to actually look at what are the actual dollars spent on those different areas of compensation. So that with our grand dream, until about 2 weeks ago, the idea was that we'd be able to go back and figure out that actually you're not spending as much as you budgeted. And there would perhaps be a way for us to fight for steps and lanes continuing forward beyond September 1st. The unfortunate reality of where we are right now, which I know we're going to talk about in a little bit, is that that's going to be harder and harder for us to accomplish. But we are going to continue to go back to the table in July and really look at what are we spending on benefits, what's actually being spent in compensation, how many people are eligible for SAIP 105, et cetera, so that we can actually negotiate based on real numbers rather than sort of budgeted ideas about what they anticipate. Because in the old days, that was always something we could do because things were always getting better. But now that we're looking at, you know, the structural deficit that we're talking about, we're looking at no longer growing as a district in terms of student population. And then on top of it, now adding the really overwhelming loss of $3.3 billion at the state level, that's the reality that we're going to have to start to deal with when we come back. So that kind of gives you an idea of our thinking and our philosophy in terms of what we were trying to do with compensation. And I do believe that in the end, we will end up in a better place than many other districts around us who are talking about cuts and furloughs and everything right off the bat. So we're going to try to push that off as much as we possibly can. So other questions? Is there anyone who wants to jump in and answer any of these questions? Is there something wrong with my mic? Can people not hear me?
It's better now. It was glitchy.
Yes.
It just keeps cracking. I just hear this crack, like something is touching your mic. Maybe, I don't know, your shirt or something. I don't know.
My mic's nowhere close to me. I don't even know, but
Maybe
sorry.
me.
I don't know. It's probably me. I don't know. I'm on my school, provided Surface computer. So
Oh,
there
that
you go.
explains it. Now I got it. Yep, that's it.
All right. Are there other Andy Burns? I'm just going to kind of jump through here. So National Board Certified Teachers. This conversation happened at the table. For those of you that are National Board Certified or are going through the process, know how ridiculously hard it is and how much time it takes. And so we did have a back and forth about what we were doing with National Board, and the argument was made that you have people who have spent the last 3 years will not find out until November whether or not they have achieved their National Board certification, have spent a lot of money to be able to apply. And if they're not going to be eligible to receive the increase, that's not okay. So we were able to guarantee that. So if you are in the middle of working on your National Board right now, please do not stop. If you are able to accomplish that, then that will be honored through the district. Para increases, Andy, I've heard rumors, and there is conversation at the legislative level about whether or not they might try to hold off on the triggered increase of 1.25% for this year until next year. That's very much something that's happening. If you are a member or receive things from Secure Para, if you never looked at it, securepara.org, there's some work that they're doing right now. And if you wanted to get involved with that, I know that they are also trying to work with the legislature to hopefully sort of stave off some of those cuts and also try to restore funding to our retirement. What else? Other questions that people? I'm trying to catch up. Anyone else on the team have questions that you?
This is again, somebody asked a question. I'm not sure if it was answered or maybe it doesn't, we don't know how to answer it, about if you are frozen at a step for a couple of years, what that will mean in a couple of years, if you'll still be at that step or if it'll retroactively move you.
So Kristen Cheney asked that and I did answer it. Megan, that's not something, we don't know where the state of the world, the state of the district will be at that point. So as much as we would love to say, of course, everyone will get their steps retroactively back to them, we don't know the answer to that yet. Obviously, we will need to bargain that again, and we will absolutely try our best, but it sort of depends on where the state of everything is. So right this second, we don't know.
Okay, cool. Yeah, sorry, I missed your answer.
No, it's okay.
Could I add something to that?
Sure.
Okay. I also think that when we talk about us as an organization around, frozen steps and will we get that stuff back? I do think that the more solid we are together in our larger voice and how we advocate for education is going to be really important, because those of us that were around in 2008 know what happened with kind of the recession and how we bounced back from that. And we've never really been made whole. So I think that we do have to, and Melissa answered it perfectly. I just wanted to throw in the advocacy piece, is that we need to continue to talk to our legislature about how teachers and people in public education shouldn't be the ones that are shouldering all this burden. So I think really good question. And again, Melissa answered it beautifully.
Yeah, I think that we do need to think about what does that look like and how do we make ourselves whole, and obviously those are going to be some difficult decisions. And I think, you know, to hear it from some people are anticipating that next spring is going to look even worse than this spring, just because some of the things that are happening at the state level, we're not feeling all of those full effects yet. So that's why it's even more critical that we are advocating right now, trying to do as much as we possibly can to hopefully get the legislature to take care of some of those things now. That doesn't mean magically that we're going to somehow get a pay increase in July or August, but it does mean that that we're in a better position to be able to start advocating for what do we do moving forward. Losing a step is disastrous. I have experienced it. There are people on this call that I know have experienced it with me. And it is incredibly difficult when you never get it back and you're bitter for the rest of your career that you lost it. So, so I can hear you. And one of the things that's become very clear is that the reality is we have kind of an imbalanced compensation system. And so when the decision was made that compensation that we allocate for now moves forward, the reality was that we couldn't turn around and say to people who were relying on a 105 or planning on an SAIP or whatever to all of a sudden say those are going away. But that's the balancing act that we're going to have to start to figure out moving forward, and it's going to be hard. But I do believe that when we start to have those conversations together, we hopefully will make the right decisions for everyone. Along with that there's been this question about the SAIP idea. So on that slide where Stephen was talking about things that are kind of in a holding pattern, the reality is that there are a few things: SAIP, RFs, extended contracts, and supplementary pay that are kind of dependent upon what our new normal looks like. So while there is money allocated for an SAIP, we don't know if what we've done for SAIP in the past is going to be able to hold true next year, given the circumstances for teaching. The example they kept giving us was middle schools, and middle schools do tutorials after school. And if after school activities or whatnot are not going to happen, then what does that mean for SAIP? Are there ways for us to sort of reimagine what an SAIP would be in this new world, which I think is definitely a part of the conversation. The situation would be, we just don't know yet what that would look like. And we didn't want anybody to go down a path where they thought, oh, I'm going to do the exact same thing next year that I did this year, without recognizing that there may be some changes that have to happen. Same thing with supplementary pay. We don't know what athletics and activities are going to look like in the state of Colorado for next year. So then it's a question of, are there savings associated with some of those things that we can look at? So, and RFs and extended contracts, if you don't know, are basically determined by principals. So that's not, we have policy language, and then we have decisions that principals make with their own individual budgets. And so there's some talk about how to kind of make that more equitable and uniform across the district. Anything else with those extra compensation things? So yes, any 105s that were completed, if you're completed, you are in the middle of one, you are in year 2 trying to take classes for your 105, all of that will continue to be honored as is. There are just no new plans that are going to be started this fall of 2020. Trying to think, is there anything else? So as people are thinking about questions, a couple of things just to give you an idea of what's coming down for you. All members will be receiving the ballot for ratification, as well as summaries and the language associated with each of these tentative agreements, hopefully on Monday, will probably realistically be when you receive it. And then you will have time to be able to go through that and vote. Obviously, that is the voice of the association. We bring forward as the bargaining team what we believe is the best settlement we could reach at this particular time, given where we are with the district and what it is that we discussed all year. And I do think it's a reasonable package. I do think that there are unfortunate parts of it, but that's going to happen in any bargaining session, and that's going to happen with any package. And I also think there are some highlights. And so I hope that, you know, we kind of understand moving forward that these are not easy decisions. As Stephen said, we did not take this lightly. There's a reason why we negotiated 2 extra sessions about the freeze, because it was really, really difficult for us to accept the fact that we were in a situation where the freeze of steps and lanes was our option. So luckily we were able to push back and extend, you know, lanes until September 1st. Some people have asked me, is that really going to hold? And the answer is yes, it's an agreement as long as it's ratified by us and the Board of Education also approves it at their board meeting. Then yeah, September 1st will be the honored date by which you have to turn in your horizontal advancements. So I know there are people out there asking, should I go take 15 hours? And I would tell you, yes, if you can make that happen, that would be a way to be able to offset some of the losses that I know we're going to experience. So non-certified staff, Rose, yes, supplementary pay does not change whether you are classified or certified, or even what we call lay coaches, which are people that are not employed by the district. That has always been the supplementary pay for all of those positions, no matter what your employment status is with the district. Unfortunately, the chat isn't going to show up on the recording that I know of. So I do want to make sure if there are any questions, especially for the sake of anyone who is live streaming, if there's any question in here that you want to make sure that we say out loud and share with everyone.
Carly, there are a lot of questions around SAIP, and Jackie just said, yes, SAIP is available if you currently receive it. The parameters around that may look different dependent on if we are remote or not. But if you currently receive SAIP, we did bargain that is something that you could continue to receive moving forward.
And technically, there are people who hit their last step of their lane this year who would be eligible for SAIP next year, and you are also eligible to receive SAIP. So, because the way it works, you know, 105, once you hit that spot, you get to start applying for 105s that year, whereas SAIP is on a lag, it's the next year. And so we did reach agreement with the district about that. And so you are also newly eligible to receive SAIP. I just can't guarantee you what it's going to look like.
There are a lot of questions also about 105s. So if you are currently in a 105, you will get paid through your 3 years. I saw someone said they're about to start a new plan in February. New plans at this time are frozen. Sorry. If you can hear the baby screaming. We don't know what that looks like the following year, just because, again, we have not bargained for that. But this current year, if you are, even if your principal in February just agreed to your next round of 105, you are good to go. New plans are frozen at this time.
Wow, there's not any more questions? I'm kind of surprised.
Carly, I actually have one I want you just to clarify. You guys have hit on it, but I think I'm a little confused is all. It's the, let's see, cafeteria dollars. It's that under benefits, that very first one. And it says 174 a month supplemental benefit pay. Now there's also one that says, or on the paycheck, it says medical premium supplement. Now that's different than this, correct? Am I correct in knowing that that is different than the 174 supplemental benefit pay?
Yes.
Okay.
So the two things that would move forward, if on your pay stub and I don't get these things in my paycheck, so I had to find someone who does, who could show them to me.
Glad you did.
It says cafeteria benefit dollars cash out and supplemental benefit dollars. Those two line items, if those are in your paycheck, then those would be the things that would be moving forward, with the caveat that you continue, as Stephen and I talked about earlier today, we were having a conversation about this, that cafeteria benefit dollars cash out is for anyone who was hired prior to 2006 and did not take district benefits. So if you decide this year to take district benefits, you will not continue to receive that cash out.
Oh, that's very well clarified. Thank you.
But if you receive supplemental benefit pay, that's based on you being at step 20 or above, and you will, no matter what, you'll continue to receive that.
Okay, so then what is the medical premium supplement?
I'm actually, I don't know. I've never heard of that, Carol.
So, Carol, I might be able to speak to that. Carol, with the Stephen White. I think that generally speaking, the $394 that the district, that was kind of an amount from years ago, right? And then each year we negotiated additional monies to be put into the individual or the employee plus children, employee plus spouse, and employee plus plus family. And so that, I'm assuming that that number is based on what you received in addition to the $394 to purchase your benefits. So can I assume, Carol, that you took benefits through the district?
Correct, I did.
Yeah, and so if you, let's say you covered yourself and 3 kids, it'd be employee plus children, and that was the additional amount that we negotiated last year. So $394 plus an additional $600, and that would be that amount. Without looking at your paycheck, that's what.
Okay,
well, I think that's an important part that lots of people don't see because it's not often laid out for us, and that is that even when you're looking at your benefits right now, right, and you're going to pay $80 a month to be on the high deductible health plan, and you're getting $250 in an HSA, there's still a portion of your premium that the district is paying on your behalf to Kaiser.
Okay, so so it's
your premium is way more than $80 a month.
Right. It's under the employer paid benefits on the pay stub, and it's called medical premium supplement.
That's what it is. It's the other, it's so that you see on paper how much your employer is paying towards your benefit premiums.
Okay, I tried to explain that today to a member, and I kind of got it right. So I really I appreciate your help. Thanks.
Right on.
Right on.
Yeah, you. Okay. All right. We were planning to go till about 5:30. So if there are any last questions or anything else that you would like to make sure we speak to. The question was asked earlier, will we send out the PowerPoint? And I think I answered that, but for the sake of people at home, yes, we will send out a PowerPoint. We'll send out the PowerPoint. You will also get, with the ratification vote, a very detailed summary of each piece of language that we agreed to, and you'll be able to look at copies of the actual language before you vote. You are voting on the whole package. So I
also think that, Carly, just to make sure people don't get off yet, because Jackie just sent out a note saying, hey, stick around, we have some other things to talk about.
Absolutely. Sorry.
Yeah, so I just wanted to make sure. And then also, just as a point of clarification, you said everybody at home. I think we're all at home.
Oh, so. Thank you. It was a saying, right? Like for the folks at home. And yes, so Megan, that is absolutely what we're going to talk about, which is the emergency tax relief and what it is that we can do about this.
All right, I thought this conversation was winding down, and I was confused that that hadn't come up yet. So I apologize.
Lynn, I believe certification pay is national board certification. So if you say certification pay on your pay stub, that's for your national board certification. Okay, all right. So with that, don't go anywhere because you totally deserve your national board certification. All right, sorry, I'm talking to a chat with people in the room who can't read the chat. So, all right, thank you so much. If there are questions, obviously included in the email will be all of our names and how you can contact us. Please do not hesitate to email any of us or members of the executive board as well. We are all here to try to help you get through this and try to understand what it is that has been decided, as well as how it is that we hope to move forward. I appreciate you being here. I like the idea of the town hall, and it's kind of fun to give us a chance to be able to all talk about what it is that we've been negotiating. Because, you know, while it's lovely for everyone to come to bargaining, we know that that's not always possible. And so we appreciate all of your support and the efforts that you've done. And we know that the last 2 months have not been easy. And we're working very hard to continue as an association to not only focus on these issues of compensation and the world that we're going to live in the future, but also what does it look like to teach in the 2021 school year. So those two things are what we're going to talk about now. So I'm going to turn it over to Jackie, and then I guess, Jackie, do you want me to continue to drive PowerPoint?
Yes, please, if you're okay with that.
Absolutely.
I'll just tug my ear. We'll have some kind of weird signal.
Oh, okay.
I'll do this. Jazz hands. It'll be great.
Like your Carol Burnett. Do you know who Carol Burnett is? Are you old enough?
I know of that. I've heard the reference. Okay. So hi, everybody. Thank you for, for being here tonight, for listening. I want to make sure that everybody's on the same page about what is happening, why we're here, and then what our next steps are to maybe see a vast improvement in our outlook in the next couple months. We do have a really unique and important and pressing opportunity ahead of us to make this not quite so bad. But first, please go. Yeah, thanks, Carly. But first, I need to tell you how bad it is, okay? And, I've told folks before that, we want to lead with hope and not fear, and I stand by that. But I think folks also need to know the reality of where we are right now in this moment. I'm sure as the ARs who are close to members in your buildings that you have gotten heard from folks who are scared, who are upset, who don't know what's going to happen, who the freeze is going to impact pretty significantly, who benefits changes are going to impact pretty significantly. And so I think part of the conversation that we need to be having with folks to help them understand is things look pretty bad. You can see from this slide that the budget forecast for next year predicts that we will see a 25% shortfall to the entire state budget. That is how much revenue we are losing from the COVID crisis projected into next year from a variety of things. It's looking pretty grim. And as you can see from this chart, K-12 education is about 35% of the general fund. That means that public education spending is a very attractive choice for legislators who need to balance the budget in Colorado by law to use as a slush fund to increase the BS factor significantly and to balance the budget again on the backs of kids. Legislators are no better or worse, than normal people. They're definitely worse than you because you're educators, and educators are wonderful. But they are normal folks who will take the path of least resistance, and the easiest thing that they can do is cut education funding, treating it as though it's kind of a slush fund. And so our goal right now is to make that the path of most resistance, so they choose to take a different path, which Misty's going to tell you a little bit about. Misty?
Hello, everyone, and you can go to the next slide, please, because I don't know how to do that. Perfect. So this is good news. We actually do have a thing called a temporary emergency tax relief clause under Tabor. This will infuse, we have to get the legislature to pass the emergency tax relief clause with a 2/3 majority of the members of both House and Senate. The emergency tax relief would then be immediately infused into the state budget. $700 million. That is a significant amount of money. There's some kind of getting down in the weeds thing about this, but and I'm happy to talk about this with you, but you can also go to Fair Tax Colorado. Well, I got ahead of myself. I apologize. The $700 million would then be sent out to all those state services that were on the previous slide, and public education would be receiving a significant amount of money, which means that we could very likely stop the freezes, we could stop job loss, and then with a second part of our political strategy, our legislative strategy, we would get the legislature to then refer to the ballot Initiative 271, which we'll talk about in just a sec. And that would create the emergency tax relief. It would actually make it become a permanent part of school funding. And that would then create $2 billion. That's B as in billion dollars. That would be coming to the state budget every year, and $1 billion of that would be earmarked to go to public education. So we have a tight timeline though, and I am going to let Jackie talk about that.
Yes. So this has been an idea that has come up very quickly. It's a very, so the provision in Tabor, and I want to be clear with folks before I go on to that no one needs to be an expert in any of this. It is incredibly complicated. It is changing really quickly. What we're going to ask folks to do does not require anyone to be an expert. What we're going to ask folks to do, this is all good wallpaper and background knowledge, but nobody on this call or anybody you talk to should expect to need to be an expert on this. And we should think about it in those terms. And we just want to give you a working understanding, and we're happy to go more into the weeds. And we will have more opportunities for folks to go deeper into the weeds with us. Will you go back a little bit? Oh no, so never mind, it's right here. So the week of the 18th is when the Joint Budget Committee will come back and they will finalize the long bill and the projected budget. The week of the 25th, they actually come in on the 26th. The House will meet to vote on the budget and the long bill and the School Finance Act. The week of June 1st, the Senate will come in to meet and vote on all of these things. And then the week of June 8th will be the conference committee to finalize and send to the governor to sign. As you might tell, for something this major, this is a very short timeline to implement this emergency tax, which has never been done before. The Tabor provision that we're referring to does not allow for this to happen for something that is only a funding crisis. It has to be some other kind of crisis which causes a funding crisis. And so the COVID crisis would allow us to do this and might be our silver lining window into making drastic systemic changes to better state funding of public education here. Misty?
Thank you. So we do have a tight timeline, but I'm going to call this a campaign, the Emergency Tax Relief Campaign. We are already moving forward. There are several local associations around the state and UNISERV units around the state who have already been doing an amazing job to put pressure on our legislators to do the right thing. The cool thing about this effort, this emergency tax relief, is that sometimes the legislators, especially out on the rural plains, are very reluctant, if like downright adamant, that they are not going to pass what they would call a tax increase. But because many of these rural districts are even in higher jeopardy than some of our districts in the metro area, they could be faced with losing all their state health services, and there could even be school districts, rural school districts, that completely close. I cannot wrap my head around that. So number one, we need to contact our legislators and demand that they pass the emergency tax relief. We have phone banks that we're going to actually start, and I may be getting ahead of myself, so I apologize, tomorrow, because it's probably very unlikely that all of our members know about the emergency tax relief or even know about the potential of Initiative 271. So Front Range UNISERV, of which Cherry Creek EA is a part of, along with Sheridan, Inglewood, Platte Canyon, Gilpin, Idaho Springs, and South Park, and our Cherry Creek bus drivers are engaging in a unit-wide action. So that's going to include legislative contacts. It's also going to include some roundtables. Step 2 says redefine the non-cash part of the emergency reserve. All right, so that's what the legislature has to do.
Yeah,
And
if you go to the next slide, you'll this is what you're talking about.
oh, okay,
There you
thanks.
go.
And here's the plan. So I've already stepped all over Jackie's toes because this was her slide. So I am now going to gently back out, but I just want to let you know that about Clear Creek County Education Association. Their entire association has 50 members, and they have almost 100% of members in Clear Creek County. So not even the size of a large elementary school or a small middle school. They are getting ready to phone bank. They're going to create a roundtable in conjunction with South Park EA and Platte Canyon EA to lobby Representative Dennis Heisey. They're forming a coalition with their PTA and their booster club, their school board, and their superintendent. And they are going to do a massive community outreach to their folks. And I just want you to know that a little local like that is making a lot of waves, and CCEA has the opportunity to make a tsunami for the legislators that can get this across. So thanks for letting me go on. Thanks, Jackie. Go ahead.
No worries. And so we weren't able to have her join us tonight, but we had an emergency meeting with some folks. Some people on this call were on it on Tuesday night. And we had Natalie Cole, who's one of our CEA lobbyists, on, and she kind of like let us in behind the curtain of what happens when we do put this kind of pressure on legislators and just how much it really and truly works. And so what we need to do and the way that we can win and really prevent some of these drastic, draconian, scary things that we're expecting to happen is to make sure that they know that this is what they need to do, right? And to call, to email, to talk to them. I don't know about y'all on the call, but I don't think many people in Creek, many of our members, even know that this is a possibility or that it's being considered. And our power is in our members, right? And so the first thing that we have to do is educate them so that they know that this is happening and that they have the power to make the difference to get this across the finish line, because that is the only way we can get that done in the next 2-3 weeks. Right. And so, yes, I'm seeing some folks in the chat talking about how important this is. Misty, I'm going to step on your toes now because you said this a couple times. Misty has been an educator, a local president, a UNISERV director for 40 years. And she has said a bunch of times, and I hear it every time, that this is the most important thing that we have ever fought for. This is the worst crisis we have ever faced. And this is the biggest opportunity to meet that crisis in a way that actually sets us up better in the future. So what 271 is, I see you, Maria, in the chat. So this emergency tax would be the fair tax Colorado that some folks might have heard about, which is a tax cut on state income taxes for 95% of Coloradans in a progressive income tax. So it's not, it's for each amount of money up to a certain amount is taxed at a certain amount. The next chunk is taxed at a different amount, et cetera. So it's not like I make $249,000 a year and I'm taxed at 5%, and then I make $250,000 a year and I'm entirely taxed, or $251,000 a year, and I'm entirely taxed then at 10%. Right up to $250,000, somebody is taxed at 5%, and then the money above that amount is taxed at 10%, right? And so this small, albeit small, tax cut for 95% of people, and a small, relatively small increase on the 5% of Coloradans who can most afford it, would fully fund public education, right? $1 billion a year would end the negative factor, period. And so having this moment where we can implement this progressive tax structure temporarily as an emergency measure would then give us the opportunity to refer it to the ballot in the fall. There's some question about whether the legislature will refer it, or if we will still have to get signatures to get it on the ballot. But we could then get it on the ballot in the fall. And if we pass it then as a tax cut for 95% of people that fully funds public education and raises $1 billion for roads and bridges and infrastructure and broadband internet to the rural areas and all of the things that we need as a growing and changing state, we have a huge coalition of partners on our side about why this needs to happen, and all of the good that it can do, especially when so many of our citizens are struggling, right? And so we need to do this. This is our moment to fix it. And I said that a lot in jest last year about this, but I've never meant it more than I mean it right now. This is our real opportunity, and it came in a horrible time, but that's what it is. And so we have 3 phone banks scheduled. We have one tomorrow from 3 to 6. And the way that it's going to work, it's modeled after 2 very successful phone banks that DCTA did, where folks will log on to a Zoom. We'll have a training on Zoom about the phone bank. And then you'll log into a phone bank on your computer. It'll have the person's name, the script, the answers to their questions. And so you can plug that in right there. And then you move on to the next person, and folks will stay on mute on Zoom. So you can, if you have a really great conversation, you can like, oh my God, y'all, I put it in the chat. I want to talk to you, or I got this hard question. How do I answer it? And they enjoyed it so much. They had one scheduled, and they liked it so much that they scheduled another one and did another one on the Saturday following. So we have one tomorrow, 3 to 6. We have one on Tuesday from 1 to 4, and another one on Thursday next week from 3 to 6. But we could set up another time if some folks from your particular building wanted to do one all together. We could set you up to do phone calls on your own time, on your own, if you're more comfortable that way, or if you find 20 minutes here and there. All of these things are possibilities. Anyone who wants to engage, we will do whatever it takes for y'all to engage in this. it's really, really, really important that our members know this is happening and that they have control over what happens.
Jackie, could I go ahead and talk a little bit about the roundtables?
Of course.
Thanks. So this Saturday at 10 o'clock, some of your bargaining team and bargaining support people, along with other bargainers and bargaining support people from the metro area, all 14 local associations, we meet once a month on Saturday, the second Saturday of the month. But I'm not sure if this Saturday is the second Saturday, but we're meeting anyway at 10 o'clock. And one of the things that we're going to do is have a breakout session so people can learn more about just the emergency tax relief and 271. There'll be a breakout session about how to schedule a round table. And basically a round table, like Jackie was talking about, is where we have about 5 or 6 educators, public education employees that have compelling stories about how the budget cuts have hurt their students, impacted their own lives, and tell those stories to the legislators, and then make the direct ask of those legislators at the roundtable to vote yes on the tax relief, the temporary tax relief, and to refer Initiative 271 to the ballot in November. And what we're finding is the legislators are unable to legisplain and kind of shut folks down. They are forced to listen, and the member stories are making a huge impact. Every day, we are hearing more and more feedback from our UniServe colleagues across the state and other organizations that temporary emergency tax relief is gaining more traction. However, as Jackie said, the legislature will take the path of least resistance, and we need to keep the pressure on so that they do the right thing. It is true, it is 40 years I've been in this business, not 14 years, just in case you didn't hear. I have never seen an opportunity like this. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Jackie. Thank you.
So you'll see this bit.ly link, and this is to go to the sign up sheet. And we are asking if you are able to sign up for a shift, or to make calls in your spare time, or to talk to some folks in your building about coming together to make calls together. Please, it's in the Connect, it's in this the page, the bit.ly/ETR emergency tax relief sign up. Case matters. I would put it in the chat, but folks can't copy and paste out of the chat, which is kind of annoying, but you know, that's why we did it as the bit.ly to make it as easy as possible. But case does matter. So the capital E, capital T, capital R matters. And so
let's go to the next slide.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we can try.
There it is.
Okay, and then we have one more slide, and so after this.
Thank you all.
Go for it, Misty.
Oh, so that fairtaxcolorado.org, they have a great FAQ on there. You have a tax calculator. You can see how this would impact you. And you can also email Jackie or me, jparkins@coloradoea.org. We'll put that in the chat, because we can add you to our activists list. We are sending out some action alert updates. There's a school board resolution that we're hoping all school boards in the state will adopt. There's also a joint letter from healthcare partners in the state that was just sent to the legislature about this. Again, the coalition is broad and it's meaningful. So with that, we are out. I'll put our email addresses in the chat now.
You just did, Misty, so we're good.
Oh, of course you did. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much to Jackie and Misty, who have really taken on this charge for us. They are UniServe directors, and they, you know, are connected with everyone throughout the state. And obviously you can tell this is a concerted effort. We are not going to make this change alone. And I think it's really important that we're also, as an association and as a district, involved in these efforts across the state, because I think it helps us in the long run. And it helps us to support other places that really do need funding. And then in the end, we benefit from that as well. So hopefully you can get involved. I realize it's the end of the school year and things are busy right now, but we really do need your help right now in the last couple of weeks so that we can make some things happen. The last thing we wanted to share with you is just what's happening locally within our district. We know that several of you have had lots of questions about what in the world is next year going to look like. And the answer is no one really knows. I know there's a lot of conversation out there. There's a lot of articles in the newspaper, online, but the reality is we're just not sure yet. But what we have done as an association is to try to create a CCEA Educators Advisory Council. And the intention behind the council is for us to make sure that we are involved. Teachers, mental health, and nurses' voices are heard as we begin to talk about what does reopening our schools look like. And so we sent out a survey and we received more than 180 responses. And we have a group of members from the executive board who are painstakingly going through all of those 180 people to really try to find a group of 30 to 40 educators who are as representative of our district as we possibly can be, whether that's the geography of where you work and the student populations that you serve, as well as your own personal identity, what level you teach, what subject you teach, what role you hold in the district, so that we can have as many of those different voices as possible. As soon as we narrow it down, we'll make sure that people know who the educators are on this advisory council, so that if you have ideas or anything that's really important to you that you want to make sure gets heard, that you can reach out to one of those members and they'll be able to share those with you. It was amazing to get that many volunteers. We also had tons and tons of information that people shared about their feelings about remote learning, things they've experienced, experience they have in doing this, and thoughts they have about what we can do. So we're taking all of that and collating that information and sharing it with the district. There is a Restart 2020-21 task force that was created. I believe Dr. Siegfried has talked about it in various settings, so maybe you've heard about it. On that task force, you have 5 people from the association who are representing our bargaining unit, essentially. So Casey Ellis serves on the task force, myself, and then 3 other teachers, Kelsey DeBow, Matthew Pedregon, and Megan Spellman. And so they are hopefully, you know, we have elementary, middle, and high school, as well as we have representatives from specials and electives and special education, as well as general education classrooms. So we are trying to take as much of your feedback as possible to the task force so that we can ask questions and really consider all of these high level decisions that are being made, how they're going to impact all of us when we go back into a classroom or into our offices or wherever it is and actually do our job. So the mission is right now, they are trying to come up with responses to 3 different scenarios. And those 3 scenarios are essentially, we go back as normal or as normal as possible, but maybe we have an outbreak and we have to go back online. We have a fully online experience where we have remote learning again when we come back, or we have some kind of hybrid of that or a blended approach where, and they're talking about different versions of that, but the most common one out there is this idea of an A-B schedule, where half of your students were in some kind of social distancing situation where half the students would come one day, half the students would come the next day. I understand the minute you hear all of those things, you're like, there are so many issues with any number of things I just said. And believe me, we are sharing those same sort of concerns and really trying to be thoughtful about how it is that we kind of deal with that. but that's the mission. The idea is that by May 26th, there will be an idea from the district as to what we would do in each of those 3 scenarios. And then somewhere in another week or so, theoretically, Denver metro area districts would begin to formulate a plan to share with the public as to here's what we would do. There will be no decision, however, about what it is that we're going to do until we get closer to the start of the school year, because there are so many things that are changing that they're going to have to look at before they figure that out. But that's their mission right now. It's fairly quick in terms of the timeline as well for this. And so we're trying to get our Educators Advisory Council set up ASAP so that we can begin to talk to all of you about your concerns, questions, issues, and we will bring them forward to the task force. We've already been looking at your comments from members, and we will try to start beginning to meet with those people next week. I want to turn it over to Casey if she has anything else she wants to add about that work.
So one of the things that we're doing too, I just got off of a call with Amy Baca, our CEA president, and Becky Pringle, who's our current NEA vice president. They're going to be meeting with legislators in DC next week. So they were asking if we had any information, any comments, anything like that from members. And I said, well, why, yes, we actually do. So the comments that you guys made on that spreadsheet are going to be shared with CEA and NEA for them to take to Washington so they can have actual teachers' voices at the table while they're talking with legislators. We need to, what I need you guys to know is that this quick turnaround is quick. Carly and I are meeting with this task force twice a week right now. We are also meeting with the Office of, PILT, Professional Instructional Learning Team, maybe. It's Mike Giles' office, basically. And we're meeting with them to actually talk about what that looks like. Really, for you guys to understand, this is just a big overall picture right now. Once they determine what those three things are, then we're going to start really drilling down into what does that look like for teachers? What does PD look like? They're planning PD for teachers. They're planning PD for parents and for kids, so that everybody can work on the platforms and understand what's going on. As soon as we have the members for this Educators Advisory Council figured out, we're going to get emails out to everybody, and we're going to try to set a meeting up as early as Monday or Tuesday of next week so that we have some information that we can take into our meeting on Thursday.
Okay, so I realize there's probably questions that showed up and I haven't seen them, but
DPS has already announced they're going to go that way. We haven't made any decisions on that yet. So, and we won't. I mean, you know, it's been pretty clear from Dr. Siegfried that the decision as to whether we're remote, whether we're brick mortar, or whether we're a combination won't be made until end of July.
And I think some of that is there's so many aspects to the community's involvement in this conversation, and
yeah.
And then, you know, I know some of you have seen the story out of Jeffco that came out last night in terms of some details about their plan. And I don't think anyone was ready. The grand dream was that all these metro area superintendents were all going to kind of come up with a plan together. In absence of direction from the governor or the public health departments, they basically decided it would be better for all of them to kind of come together as a one group and one voice, and that was a way to kind of support each other instead of setting each other up if we do things differently. But the reality is that already seems to maybe be coming apart at the seams if there are districts out there already kind of announcing their plans. And so the district said today, which I think is an important thing to remember, is it's not important in this case to be first. It's important that we're right and we get it right for our communities, for our teachers, for our students. And I do appreciate that there is some really important thinking going into how do we do this in the best way possible. It's again, not going to be easy, but and there are so many factors. And
oh my gosh.
And we've been spinning over all of the factors ourselves. And I know that you guys as teachers are wanting information, as do I, and about what this could potentially look like. And so there will be communication going out prior to the end of next week, so that at least people have some kind of idea. There, you did, a lot of you filled out the tech survey, and there was some decisions already made essentially about what our learning management system would be and what options there will be out there for teachers. And that really was based on an overwhelming majority of people that are comfortable using Schoology first and foremost, and then within that, Google Classroom, and then that also our K-2 teachers want access to Seesaw. So those are the three kind of platforms, so to speak, that we are going to support as a district and that will be available. All the other apps associated with that are still kind of up for discussion. So I do believe the district's being very thoughtful and careful about how it is that we do this, and your voice does matter in this process, and we will do everything we can to bring it to the table so that all of the decisions that are made are going to be difficult, and there are going to be things that none of us like and some of us love and others of us hate. But the reality is that we're going to do the best we can for the community and what it is that we need in Cherry Creek School District. So.
And I think the important thing to note too, first and foremost, is the safety of staff and of students, right? They don't want to do anything that's going to put anybody at risk, staff or students. That's not good for the district overall, really. So that's why I think they're really being cautious and taking the time they need to take in the short amount of time we have to figure this out. And the thinking when we're in these meetings is really outside of the box. It's not your standard, well, we need to do this. No, they're really looking at outside the box thinking. And I'm really impressed with that. And they're talking about not being in silos. You know how we always talk about, well, the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing. The conversation now is left and right hand need to be in the same room. And they need to be having conversations, and they need to be sharing that information so that we can continue to build on the plan. So it's been an interesting process. And the advisory council is going to be able to help those of us inform better. And the district wants that information. They want to know what teachers are thinking. They want to know what teachers are feeling. And this advisory council is going to be the way to do it. We were also very specific to make sure that people that we looked at are also parents in the district and have kids that, because that's going to be an impact too. What does that look like for a working parent with younger kids at home, or middle school kids or high school kids? So that's part of it as well. I just lost my train of thought. That happens at 52. It'll come back to me.
All right, it is 6:01. So I think we are at a good stopping point. We promised we would be done at 6. So yeah. So I think if there are any other questions, please don't hesitate to reach out, email any and all of us. Please get involved and figure out how it is that you want to sort of make your voice heard in the midst of all of these different things that are going on. And we do appreciate your involvement in the association, because that's what matters most. So, all right. Thank you. Enjoy the last week of school.